Hey guys, I want to talk to you about how to avoid knee pain in common exercise moves. And this is geared for my P90X3 hybrid folks, but it really applies to anybody. I'm going to try and give you some broad principles that you can use in different exercise programs, not just this one. So there really are a couple of basic leg moves that are used over and over and over in different variations, and those are squats and lunges. So let's look at lunges first. They're actually a little simpler. You have probably heard this instruction to keep the knee over the ankle. So what that means is the front to back plane is what most people think of, and that's really important. So you don't want to let the knee go forward of the ankle. And it's not so much the alignment, it's really what that signifies is happening in your body. When your knee goes out over your ankle, it means you're not drawing back, you don't have any weight on your back leg, and you're really collapsing the weight forward, so your femur, your thigh bone, is putting weight into the back of your kneecap. So that's why over time, that can wear your knees out if you're doing it that way over and over and over, and it can start to cause knee pain. So this way is better. There's not a lot of things I would say are better, usually you have some choices, but it's better in this case with lunges to keep some weight on the back leg, and when you bend low, your hips go straight down instead of moving forward. So that's the front to back plane, but now let's look at the side to side plane. When you bend that front leg in a lunge, you don't want the knee drifting into the center line, ouch. And likewise, you don't want it drifting out, towards your outer hip. You want to keep the knee right over the ankle in the side-to-side plane as well. And the reason for that is when the knee drifts in, it puts more weight on the inner knee. When the knee drifts out, it puts more weight on the outer knee. You want to use really the whole knee joint and distribute the weight evenly throughout it in a lunge. Now, also, one more thing about lunges. If you find that they're causing knee pain, then see if it's a stepping forward lunge, if you can do a stepping back lunge instead. And I think it's pretty easy to guess why that would be. Stepping forward brings that weight into the kneecap, the weight of the femur, and even the whole body forward. So it's a lot easier to have your knee go out in front of your ankle. You have a lot more control if you step back. So if that's an option for the move, see if you can do step back lunges instead. Okay, now for squats. So here, when we're squatting down, to kind of accommodate the bending at the hips and the knees and the ankles, just the geometry of the body, the knees have to go in front of the ankles a little bit. But I want you to keep your weight in your heels. Weight in the toes. Don't want to go into too much detail. Just keep the weight in the heels. I think maybe you can feel that helps you engage your core and the groin muscles, so you're really in a more active pose instead of sinking in your joints when you keep your weight in your heels. So that's the front to back plane in squats. Now the side to side plane in squats. Generally, you're not going to be squatting with your feet right together. It's hard to go very low. Have your feet hip distance apart, and what that does is bring the foot straight down from the hip. So now it's a lot easier in that side to side plane to have a straight line with the knee right under the hip and the knee right over the ankle. But now here too, you could see too much weight in the inner knee as the knees come toward each other and the arches flatten. So lift your arches, bring that lift to the inner knee, resist the knees away from each other. And then we don't usually have, in this position, the knees going to the outside because your big toes would lift off the floor. So most people notice that and don't do that. But what can happen is if you have your heels together, see how you're kind of doing, or I am kind of doing right now, an external rotation of my legs. So the inner thighs are coming forward, knees are turning out. And it's just not, that's kind of a different move, and you might find that in some exercise programs, but make sure you're doing that on purpose. For regular squats, Your feet should be parallel to each other with the toes pointing forward. So if you have been having minor knee pain in squats and lunges, try those tips, and I would love to know if those help you. Obviously, if you're in a lot of pain, you might not even be able to get to the point you can do that. So in that case, I would work with your doctor to handle the pain first and just rest until you feel better, and then try out some of these tips. So now I want to look at just a few of the moves from this program and kind of how these principles go into them. So, you know, these are variations on squats and lunges. So you might have a side lunge, and it's really, really easy for the knee to go out in front of the ankle. So first of all, I have to step really wide as I can. So that's not easy, step wide. And then the minute I put my foot down, I draw back from the knee towards the hip. So as I'm bending down, again, I'm going straight down more with this hip instead of out this way. So as soon as you start to bend the knee, draw back to go low. And then you can touch the floor that way. And if you feel like you don't quite have that level of control, then just don't go so low and work on coming down with control slowly until you have more control and you can go down deeper. There's no point in going really low in these moves if you're just kind of flinging body parts around and you're not using your muscles to really control the movement, because that's what builds strength. Now, let's look at these diagonal lunges. You're stepping across. These are stepping forward lunges, and then turning 90 degrees, stepping across, lunging that way. So once again, it's the same exact instruction. I just want to look at it in a different move. When you are stepping, take a big step to get enough distance for you to keep the knee over the ankle. And then as soon as you put your foot down, lower down instead of going forward to bend your knee. So look at the difference. Forward, this is a no-no. Down, and I'm keeping much more weight in my back leg and getting a nice hip flexor stretch too. All right, one more for you guys. This is actually the same move when you add the jump. So I'm not very good at this, but we go from a lunge and kind of jump to center and jump to the other side. Now, when you're going fast and jumping, you just don't have quite as much control as when you're moving slowly and deliberately. But what can happen in this move is you get a little bit of twisting in your knee. So I want you to try this with me. And when you do that lunge, just look at the knee. As it's bending, I want it pointing the same direction as the center of your foot. So like the direction that your toes are pointing, the kneecap should be pointing too. And then keep the knee pointing that way as you straighten and jump, jump. And just slow down a tiny bit, take a tiny little pause to get the kneecap facing the same direction as the toes before you go deep in the lunge. I'm gonna show you from one more angle. All right, try this with me again. So what I want you to see is my toes are pointing one direction. As the knee comes down, I keep it pointing over the center of the foot. As opposed to if I'm bending and the knee is going into the center line, or the knee's going way out, and you can see my big toes trying to lift up by doing that. So no twisting in the knee, and you should be able to feel there's no strain on the knee joint when you bend it, and it's tracking over the center of the foot. All right, I hope these tips were helpful. If you have any questions, leave a comment on the video and I'll do my best to answer.